Welcome everyone to the Spark Show, where we're going to talk about the world of Formula E. It doesn't get a lot of coverage, but I watch a lot of Formula E. I actually do the official Formula E watch-alongs. But I'm here with Sam, who's a professional karter who has actually raced over the years with a lot of drivers who are now racing in the higher echelons of worldwide motorsport. And it's just going to be an interesting space to talk about what's going on in Formula E, how are the drivers doing, how are the teams doing, what's the coverage like. So let's get straight into it. By the way, if you sound like you're going to enjoy that, just keep watching. Sam, I'm going to run through the top drivers in the Formula E World Championship this year, and I just want to know what you think about them, if you even know them, frankly.
Teach me.
Yeah, well, we'll try. So the driver leading the Formula E World Championship right now, this is an FIA World Championship, bearing in mind there's a lot of Formula 1 drivers in this championship, is Nick Cassidy. How much do you know about Nick Cassidy?
I know very little about Nick Cassidy, apart from you just said his name.
Okay. Well,
I've heard it, and that's it.
I think that's really interesting because Nick Cassidy is leading championship, and this is something I think maybe I need. I'll tell you about Nick Cassidy. Nick Cassidy is a experienced Formula E driver. He's from New Zealand. Last year, he raced for the Envision Racing team, which is a customer team of Jaguar TCS Racing.
Yeah.
So he used a Jaguar powertrain. Envision Racing actually beat Jaguar TCS to the Constructors' Championship. And by the way, I think Formula 1 want to get like an accredited Constructors' Championship. But so Envision won that. And I think Nick Cassidy, he finished the season really strongly. And his teammate was Sebastian Buemi. And I think Cassidy was a bit frustrated that Buemi not helping him out as much as he should.
Okay.
Very different to what we saw in Formula 1 recently with Magnussen like massively helping out Hülkenberg. Yeah. But yeah, Cassidy is, he was my pick at the start of the season to be a dark horse because not a lot of people really know about him. His profile isn't that high. And we'll get on to the reigning Formula World champion who's maybe got a similar profile. But yeah, Nick Cassidy, very electrifying driver to watch. And hopefully if he wins a championship, his profile will go higher. Now, the driver in second place in the championship, I think, is someone you will have heard of, and that is Pascal Wehrlein.
Yeah.
So is Pascal Wehrlein on your radar? What are the thoughts about Wehrlein?
I know him from Formula 1, obviously, and I think he should be in there. I think it's criminal that he's not in Formula 1. Yeah. He is a massively underrated driver for me.
Well, it's the thing, like, so he's in Formula E. He's a Porsche, he's a Tag Heuer Porsche factory driver. He's got a factory drive. Obviously opens up a lot of doors in terms of the Porsche, talking WEC and, But he had his chance in Formula 1. He started at, was it Manor Racing, I think, back in the day. So real backmarker team. I think he really impressed. He was a Mercedes driver. He drove at Force India for a bit.
Yeah, he was a Mercedes reserve.
Yeah. And then he's come across the Formula E, started last season really strongly. Mm-hmm. He's done the double at certain races. So when Formula E raced on a Saturday and Sunday, he's won both. Okay. And he won the opening round of this season at Mexico City for the E-Prix there. So Pascal Wehrlein, there's a lot of XF1 drivers in Formula E, but I think he's a driver. I don't know how much you really know about him, but I've seen him. He looks so focused. He's one of the most focused-looking drivers I've ever seen. Like he's on it. He's on it. That combination with Porsche as well, I think, is like they're not there to take part in anything they do. So I think it's interesting what that will do for his profile. We did see, for example, Nick De Vries, he won the Formula E World Championship with Mercedes EQ back in the day. And that was part of his credibility that got him back into Formula 1. Ironically, he's now come back to Formula E. So interesting with Wehrlein. Now, the driver is third in the standings. 3 different teams here. This is for DS Penske. Is John-Eric Verne.
Of Formula 1.
Yeah, a load of people remember John-Eric Verne Formula 1. Did he lose his seat to Max Verstappen, if I remember? Was he? I can't remember around that era.
It was around the sort of time. Wasn't Algashari, was it?
No, I can't remember, but basically he was in the Toro Rosso. He never got his chance in the Red Bull, did he?
No.
But he was a fan favourite in Formula 1. John-Eric Verne is the only 2-time Formula E World champion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's won it twice. And he's third in the championships now. I interviewed him last year, actually, at London. Really interesting guy. We talked about Formula 1 and WEC and Formula E and how it all fits together. Yeah. But again, I mean, interesting question about John-Eric Verne. Like, if he were to win a third Formula E championship this season, where does that rank him? Like in just drivers generally?
Yeah, in general, throughout all the classes.
Yeah, does he become like, he becomes in a different level to every other Formula E driver, basically?
Yeah, I imagine they'd put him the all-time current greatest of it, and that's got to move him up the rankings of all motorsport, really.
And he's been in Formula E now for a very, very long time. He came in quite early.
Okay.
So I don't know how would you rank someone like Nico Hülkenberg versus... This is almost an impossible question. This is what we do. Nico Hülkenberg versus Jean-Eric Vergne if he wins 3 Formula E championships.
Well, in theory, because it'd be hard to do, but they're both FIA. So both have their own high standards.
Yeah. If
he's winning it, you've got to put him higher than a lot of the midfield Formula 1 drivers, surely.
I think it's going to be a really interesting question because we know that there's a rival between Formula 1 and Formula E.
Yeah.
We saw the Formula E CEO do a bet where he said he's going to give £250,000 to charity if anyone can beat Max Verstappen. I think he'll probably give it to charity anyway, but like he was making the point that in Formula 1 you know he's going to win, Formula E you don't. So if you can actually win in Formula E in such a competitive series, I think we're going to start to see these questions. And I think with the relevance of World Endurance Championships seems to be even more relevant now with all the manufacturers, these sort of things. And I just wonder, I would love to see it. Let me know. I want to see like a race of champions that's actually like a race of champions between these drivers, like in equal...
Literally the WEC champion, WRC champion, Formula 1, Formula E, NASCAR, all that stuff.
Or like an all-star thing where they're sort of having fun. I want to see them more mingled together, like, you know, in the FIA.
It'd be good to see them actually compare all different disciplines of motorsport.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how the Formula E drivers do.
I put NASCAR in there, I put IndyCar in there. I just that for fans, that would be, you know, that would be incredible. Mm-hmm. So I'd be very happy to see that happen. Right, the driver who's 4th in the championship is the reigning world champion, and that is Jake Dennis, so a British driver. How much do you know about Jake Dennis?
So I know from karting he grew up with the Racing Steps Foundation, and he worked his way through that, and then he kind of disappeared.
So what's Racing Steps Foundation? People don't really know.
So that was something which was run with the MSA, which is now the MSUK, the British governing body, and they had select youngsters who they thought were exceptional but didn't have the funds, and the Racing Steps Foundation, along with charities, would fund them.
Yeah. And
Jake Dennis, I believe, was one of them, and it helped him get up into cars, and then all of a sudden it sort of disappeared, and now he's in Formula E.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say he's sort of like, because he's been a Red Bull sim driver for a long time. I think he was actually did a free practice session in Formula 1 last season in Abu Dhabi, but yeah, he's grown to. I think he's very well suited to Formula E because he's very good in close quarters. Like his mentality is just he really navigates that well, and that's why I think he won the championship last season. He's also a really nice guy. I took a flight with him actually. I sat next to him. He's just really, really chilled out guy. But like, just you know, the Racing Steps Foundation, I think BRDC as well. Like there are some ways in the UK that you can sort of get that progression if you don't have the money. So it's always great to see. I think he's a really down to earth driver. Can he do it again this year? I don't know because Andretti used the Porsche powertrain, and it seems to be like the Jaguar powertrain seems to be a little bit better in certain circuits right now.
Okay.
In Formula E, but there this standings we've got Casti with Jaguar TCS Jaguar powertrain. P2 is Verline in the Porsche powertrain. P3 is DS Penske, got a different powertrain. 4th is Dennis and Andretti in the Porsche powertrain. Interesting with Andretti, obviously a team that wants to get into Formula 1, and they managed to take Jake Dennis to Formula E glory last year. So, and the Andretti crew are always normally at the races. But yeah, interesting one, Jake Dennis. I think I'm going to say it's controversial. Like, I think he should have a much higher profile, especially in the UK. Like I remember taking this flight with him, and no one knew who he was. Yeah. Like it's in a way it's quite down to earth, but I feel like he deserves a bit more than that in terms of respect, because these guys are really racing on the limit, and they're racing in very difficult conditions with tyres that don't have as much grip and sliding around and got to take.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone always thinks down of Formula E, but it's a lot different to how it first started. That they're a lot faster. The cars go away. They deserve a lot more respect. Yeah. In the motorsport world than they get, I think.
Yeah, maybe we can get Jake Dennis on the show. It'd be great. It'd be great to sit and just chat with Jake about these things. I think he's the sort of person who would love to. Driver number 5 is Mitch Evans. Now, this is interesting because Jaguar TCF have an all New Zealand lineup. So they've got Mitch Evans and they've got Nick Casti. Mitch Evans has been with Jaguar for a while. Very, very aggressive driver. I think it's fair to say, like, he will go for sends, like, you know, and he had some comings together with Sam Bird last year as his teammate. I don't know if Mitch Evans on your radar, but again, he's a great driver in Formula E.
Once again, he's someone you hear about, and then they kind of disappeared, and now they're back in Formula E.
Yeah.
But that's about my limit.
I think it'd be great to see Mitch Evans get a championship and what that does to his profile. Next driver's got Mats Gunter, Robin Freins. Sebastian Buemi's in P8. Buemi, controversially, a few seasons ago in Formula E, he was in the hunt to win the championship, but he did a WEC race instead, and that he lost. He missed out on the points. And this year, again, a lot of these drivers, in fact, pretty much all these drivers have a program in WEC. And there's been a scheduling clash. I think the Berlin Formula race and Spa. Yeah, I think there's a clash there. So I need to hopefully work that out. But yeah, Buemi is a great driver in Formula E. I believe he's a champion. In the first few seasons, he was having some great battles. P9 is a driver called Oliver Rowland for Nissan Formula E team, so factory Nissan team, who are some really cool people on that team. Oliver Rowland, he drove for Mahindra last season and was sort of let go halfway through and has come back this season with Nissan. I don't know if Oliver Rowland's on your radar as a British.
Yeah, so in the British karting scene for the cadets, there's two massive teams in cadet karting. ORM.
Cadet is like really
Cadet is for your 7 to 12-year-olds. So you got ORM, Oliver Rowland Motorsport, and Fusion. They're the two if you want to win in Britain at the top level, they're the two teams to go for. And he's really supporting grassroots levels. So he's putting his fame and his knowledge and helping out the grassroots.
I think he's a really switched-on driver, Oliver Rowland. Actually, we saw him do really well in qualifying early on the season. P10 is a driver called Jake Hughes from McLaren, was a rookie last season.
Yeah.
Seems like a really nice guy. Don't know if you know much about Jake
Hughes.
So
when Jake Hughes used to be in karts, I used to race with Jake Hughes.
Oh, nice.
So we used to race together. So I know him. I've not spoken to him for a few years, obviously, since he left karting, but we used to race against each other. We were always battling towards the top, so we got to know each other quite well.
When you raced with him, did you think this guy's got something a bit special about him?
You could tell that he was going to be fast, and you could tell that he knew his progression. He knew where he was going. He was quite an intelligent. He'd make mistakes, but it wasn't as common as a lot of other people. So you could see he had the intelligence to work with it.
Yeah. I was in Rome last year. It's a really hot session in Rome, like 40 degrees centigrade, and he had a massive crash, actually. And I think he missed the second day, but he was quite, you can see it was weighing on him, but he was quite pragmatic.
He's a really nice guy.
I'm going to learn from it. Yeah, exactly. He seems like a really nice guy. And his teammates were Sam Bird, who made the move from Jaguar TCS to Neil McLaren this season. It wasn't clear whether Sam Bird would have a drive, actually, because Cassidy came into that seat. Sam Bird, I remember meeting at the very first Formula E race in London pretty much 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that stage, I think it was a little bit controversial at that stage because he was a Mercedes sort of junior or third driver who was much younger than he is now, 10 years younger. But he made the decision to go for the first season to Formula E. I think he was driving with Virgin back then.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were saying, Sam Bird, why are you doing this? I wonder now, Sam Bird, is Sam Bird really on your radar? Or just, I don't know what people think about Sam Bird because for me, he's very well known, but then he's been Formula E for so long.
Yeah, for people not inside the Formula E loop, which you're teaching me very well about, so I'm learning. Once again, for me, I know the name. Yeah. I don't know anything else apart from that.
So let's say hypothetically, Sam Bird at one point would have got a drive in Formula One, like Pascal Wehrlein did as a Mercedes driver. And let's say you got a drive for a Manor or, a Force India for a couple of seasons. Do you think... I don't know. I mean, for me, I've had this. People have asked me this question directly. Like, do you think Sam Bird made the right decision 10 years ago? And for me, he's been driving at the highest level in Formula E for 10 years, traveling the world in
living the dream.
Living the dream. He's never won a championship, and I think that will weigh heavily on him. I think if he won a championship, I think the question for me is quite clear that he made the right decision.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. He was someone like Lucas de Grassi who made the decision really early on. I'm going to commit to this Formula E, and they've sort of, if Formula E continues to go, become, and viewership continues to grow and everything, they'll look back at these sort of almost founding fathers. But interesting one with Sam Bird there. Very fast driver, but always has been the bridesmaid, never the bride. Some other drivers I just want to run through. So we've run through three more. P19, so no points this season driving from Mahindra, is Nick De Vries. So what do we, so Nick De Vries, obviously on your radar.
Yeah.
You might know a little bit more about the junior for me, because I'm trying to remember the pathway from Nick De Vries going into Formula E, becoming a Formula E world champion, going into F1 with some sort of like people becoming ill, and he does a few drives. Does well at Monza, I think, doesn't he?
Correct.
Then he gets a seat at AlphaTauri. Doesn't really go well for him. Loses his seat, comes back into Formula E with Mahindra.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to almost unpick time and go back in time, and because I feel like Nick de Vries' stock was really high for a long time.
He was massive. He was fully Red Bull supported for ages.
Yeah. F2 champion? I can't remember.
I don't think he was champion. I think he was a runner-up.
Yeah.
And the same with Formula 3. I don't think he won Formula 3. I think he was a runner-up.
Yeah.
But he's, like we're saying, his stock was really high. It's all going forwards. He's doing brilliantly. Had an amazing race at Monza. And then just something's happened.
We seem like a sure bet. He probably is fast and a lot of drivers on the F1 grid.
Exactly.
But then, we now know that a lot of stuff has come out about Red Bull and that family, and and he also had some sort of lawsuit as well, where I think he had to pay like some founders if he got to Formula One.
Sponsorship, wasn't it?
Yeah, sponsorship, and it was millions of pounds or something like that. So, Nick de Vries in he's back in Formula E. I think he also has a WEC drive. He's with Mahindra, who have been with Formula E, I think, since the beginning. So we'll see if they can improve. So 2 more drivers. I want to talk about Lucas di Grassi. Is Lucas di Grassi on your radar at all?
Because I watched the very early Formula E with
Heidfeld, wasn't it, back then?
Heidfeld was in it, and Prost Junior, with that massive crash at the very first
race.
Very first one. So obviously I know him from there, and because he's the Audi guy. He was an Audi guy, wasn't he?
Audi app, perhaps, maybe, yeah.
So I know of him from around that stuff. He's always been a front runner. So to hear he's near the bottom here with very minimal points.
Yeah, I think Apt Cupra are sort of an underdog team. He was with Mahindra last season. I think the thing about Lucas di Grassi, like, he's a very interesting character, Brazilian driver. Apparently his IQ is like off the charts. He's a member of Mensa.
Really?
Yeah, he's got 160 IQ or something. I remember 10 years ago, and it really makes me feel old, like I remember he was instrumental in developing the car.
Mm-hmm.
So he's another driver who went from F1. I think he was at Virgin F1.
I think he was.
And he came across, at the early stage of his career to develop it, and he's been there, I think pretty much, he's hardly missed a race, I think. Very wily character. For me, I remember, he was driving for Audi in London, and he did that thing where he drove through the pit lane. The Formula E field was on the safety car, and he drove through the pit lane.
And got ahead of the safety car.
And he did to take a pit stop, and he came out ahead of the safety car, but he was adjudged to have not fully come to a stop.
Oh.
We have this sort of iconic scene of Alec McNish, who was team principal, sort of running to the stewards.
Yeah.
And if he just stopped, it would have been a genius move. Now, obviously, the loophole's been closed, but very similar to Schumacher sort of finishing the race in the pits 1-1. So that just, to me, feeds into this, like, Lucas di Grassi, sort of this brain box, and an elder statesman, I think it's fair to say, who's really committed to sort of this electric way of racing. I think he's very passionate about the environment, stuff like that. The last driver, by the way, if you're enjoying the show, if you watched this far, leave a spark emoji in the comments and make sure you subscribe as well. We'd really appreciate it if you want to see more of this. Dan Ticktum. So he's with the big underdog ERT Formula E team. I think they're based at Silverstone. What can we say about Dan Ticktum? Obviously, I think he's a BRDC winner in the past. He's shot up sort of junior Formula, been obviously a controversial figure.
Very controversial.
I've met him and chatted with him. He's obviously a really nice guy.
Yeah.
But what's your thought?
I mean, in karting, he was amazing.
He was the guy.
And then it looked like he was going that way in the junior single seater.
Red Bull family, I can't remember.
Yeah, he was Red Bull. Always had a cracking paint helmet. Always crash helmet is always amazing. Loved it. And then obviously the controversy started, stuff like that, and then you don't really hear of him for a while, and then he pops up in Formula E.
Yeah, I think 2-time Macau winner as part of that as well, maybe.
Yeah.
Williams test third driver. I think he was a third driver in Formula E. I can't remember which team. But I think, what is Dan Ticktum's stock? Because I think Dan Ticktum always had that stock that he's really fast, but he's sort of like seems to get himself into trouble on track.
Yeah.
And he's got these iconic radio messages in Formula E where he's like, get the car running for me. No one else can do what I'm doing. But when I meet him, he seems he seems very down to earth. He just seems like a normal guy, especially us being all, growing up in England, and like he just seems like a normal English guy.
Okay.
But he's at the bottom of the grid here in the ERT team, who are real underdogs. And yeah, I just don't know, like with Dan Tickton, what the plan is really. Because when you're that far down, it's difficult to. I would love to see Dan Tickton race. I think it'd be so exciting to see Dan Tickton racing at the front. Especially, I look at.
He would definitely bring excitement.
I think Formula One, it's really devoid of personality at the moment, and I watched the Formula One sort of like post-race interviews when they're all get out of the car, and it's all very just bland, and the drivers just say the same thing every week, and it's a bit of a procession. And I feel like Dan Tickton in a battle would be absolutely great. And
would it be like watching a touring car driver?
I think
BTCC
it would. I think it would be a little bit BTCC, and like they're all mates behind the scenes, but I think in Formula One it's all very matey in front of the cameras as well. And I want to see a little bit of spice and drama. And we remember clearly even Sam, not a massive fan of Formula. Remember the first race where Heidfeld and Prost, no one wanted to concede in that last corner at China. And that happened again with Degrassi and Buemi, I think a couple of years later in London, where they ended up crashing. Those are the moments we remember in Formula One, like Senna and Prost.
Yep.
And I just feel like Dan ticked him up there, and it's someone like Degrassi, they're real personalities, and that's what we want to see. So I really hope in some of these races, because Formula E can be so competitive, that Dan Tickton can be up there. It's great to have him in that grid. 22 drivers. But there we go. That's a quick run through of sort of the world of Formula E at the moment. I'm going to be going, I think, to Misano. So if you've got any questions that you want me to ask the drivers in Misano, let me know. But I'm really excited, and hopefully it's going to be a great season. And I want to cover these stories of these drivers, and so these are drivers, driving right at the highest level, but maybe not quite getting the recognition that they deserve.
Yeah.
But cool. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time. Make sure you subscribe.